Welcome to CWS Christian Writing and Speaking. I'm your host, Jackie Wilson, and today's guest is a media executive, TV host, recording artist, public speaker, corporate spokesperson, and business professional who helps others present and communicate a concise and professional message. But today, on this episode, she's going to share her story about how God's grace led her to where she is today and everything that happened behind the scenes so that she can be what God intended for her to be. Welcome to the CWS stage, Miss Amy Scruggs. Welcome, Amy.
Thank you. I truly have been looking forward to this, and it's an honor to be with you today, and so special to be able to share from my faith perspective with this wonderful podcast and have this interview really hopefully inspire and share the message of where God was in all of this journey. So it's great to talk about the career and the things that have taken place and the different celebrations, but behind that was a lot of just on your face moments of wrenching pain and loss and saying, God, get me through. So I'm excited to tackle some of that today and hopefully inspire others to not give up.
Yeah, you do a lot in the media world. And so somebody may look at you and say, man, she has it all together. But there is a story behind it. Yes. Will you share it with our audience?
Yeah. Either way, what behind the scenes was a lot of years of hot mess and figuring it out and struggles and loss and grief. And for me, it started, I grew up in the church. I mean, I grew up singing in choir by the time I was 3. I was very involved. We went to a very large Baptist church. Wonderful. I went to Christian schools, graduated from, Christian high school. And so that was my complete upbringing. And I'm proud of that and thankful for it. But what I've learned now, all these years later, that there was still something missing of learning the grace. I think I definitely grew up in a time and in the 70s and 80s, well, it was still a little bit more, I felt fear-based and, doing good, doing the right thing, and there was that, be the good girl, right? And so when there was the times that I was in, I felt that shame, and I carried shame for a lot of years. I mean, it's still just taken years to lift off that shame. And it's only been through these struggles that I'll share with real quick, throughout my adulthood and as a mom and life, kind of kicking my tushy all these years that I discovered grace. And so the successes that we'll discuss is where my career is now and what God is doing with it, I think was really allowing grace and abundance to come back in and taking off the shame. And I think that's been the biggest, what I consider success story of my story. And that work could only be done internally and only really allowing God to come in and say, no, let me tell you who I am and undo some of those old tapes that, great people, great, wonderful, great churches, but it doesn't mean that was the message that I received at the time. Maybe they were speaking grace, but I wasn't understanding it then. And so following that journey has really been the biggest part of the next steps.
Yeah, I think a lot of people do feel shame and they don't understand that is not from God. God may convict us, if we're doing something that we should not be doing, but shame is from the enemy. Can you tell us a little bit more about the shame that you actually felt?
Well, it hit hard at 17, right after high school graduation, when I had to tell my family I was pregnant.
Oh, wow.
There it is. And that was a tough moment on the family and on me. And it was scary. It was a very abusive relationship that I'd been in. I was terrified for my life. He had raped me. It was horrid. And so there was fear. There was this factor. I needed grace and love. And so, and I know I'm speaking on a hot topic here. And so what I'm about to share has nothing to do with my views or my stances. It's just as my story. And this is what happened and what God did in it. Okay. So I want to just lay that on the path right there. But my family decided that it would probably be best if I had an abortion so that I could just start my life turning 18 and go that route. And so my mom took me to the clinic, to the Planned Parenthood. And I had already taken 3 pregnancy tests. I knew that, I was probably about 9-10 weeks along. And so I went in, I was the next to go in the operating room when they called me out and said, Amy Scruggs, they said, our tests show you're not pregnant, go home.
Wow.
And at that moment, my mom said, there's a plan for this child and I'll let your dad know. And I was so grateful that God did intervene and save Ryan. Ryan's almost 31 years old now.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went ahead and had that baby, and it was difficult for the family. And I left the church I had grown up in and was then introduced to another church that my brother had started attending. And it was the first time I'd been a church with, that was not just a choir, but the worship band. This was that different time in 1990, things were shifting, worship music was shifting. And as a singer, as I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. There's drums in church. This is incredible. And I was just so excited, and I wanted to be in the worship band, but I was a pregnant teenager. And I remember going to that pastor and saying, I hope someday I can be worthy, because I was carrying that shame of being in the worship band. And he said, well, I'm okay with it. Aren't you? We love you here. And they allowed me to be in the worship band as a pregnant teenager. And that was the first moment that I saw the grace really coming in.
Wow.
The church I'd grown up in, I had to leave. This church accepted me. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm about to learn some new lessons here. And when I dedicated that baby after he was born, and he was, 12 weeks old, and I did the baby dedication, and he said, is there family here who here, agrees to support this child? Everyone stood up.
Oh, wow.
And that was a beautiful moment. And we could do an entire podcast just discussing this and that element of what God did. But that also meant now that I'm still an 18-year-old single mom. So there's beautiful moments. God saved the child, but I was still like, okay, nothing is going to be the same. I've got to tackle this, and I have to tackle this alone. And so from that point on, nothing was about me again, or whether I wanted to go to college or what I wanted to do. It was about Ryan. And so I then met somebody, married very young, because I married someone who fell in love with me and my kid. And so then I had a few more kids very, very early on. And then I had a divorce very early on. And now here I am facing 30 years old with more mouths to feed, and going, okay, God, what do you have in this? What's taking place? And he opened a door for me. I hadn't been to college, didn't have the work experience. And I met a woman who was a single mom, amazing Christian woman, 3 kids, breast cancer survivor, not much older than me. And she was in the wholesale mortgage industry. And she said, I'm going to take a chance on you. It was literally a beautiful moment where I was in one office trying to start a job with something that I didn't understand. And someone in that office says, I've been watching you, you're tenacious, and handed me the name on a Post-it note and said, call this person and they will hire you. I told them, you have experience you don't have. Just say you have it. They're going to hire you and provide for your kids, and don't look back. And it was literally, there are so many moments in my life that it's literally been a Post-it note or a phone call from somewhere where God intervened and said, here, I'm going to lead you down that path. And that opened a door for me to start in the business world. Here I was just turning 30, not even quite. And Liz took a chance on me. And I was so grateful for this opportunity that this amazing woman gave me, that I, within 6 months, was the #1 rep in the company for this wholesale banking company. Wow. And I think yes, I needed to survive and provide for the kids, but I wanted to show her so much appreciation for taking a chance on me. We're still friends to this day. She's still a mentor, an amazing woman in my life all these years later. That started the path of me understanding that God was going to take care of things. And so I did very well in that for quite some time, provided for the kids. I started being able to go to Nashville, started recording in 2004, and starting to live my dream with that. I was singing in cover bands all around Southern California and doing concerts in the park, working my wholesale business, providing for the kids. And it was a really incredible groove at that time. And then the recession hit, and mortgage and real estate was the first thing to get hit. And it was at the same time I found out that I had tumors, that I'd had 4 C-sections with my kids. And my insides were an absolute disaster. And they had to do basically an emergency hysterectomy on me. And so I was recovering from a hysterectomy the same time that the recession hit, literally lying in bed, watching the news and watching my job and my career and what was there disappear overnight. And I had to shift. I had, again, mouths to feed. I had to shift. And so I'm like, well, Lord, you've always had music on my heart. I've been singing and playing piano since I was 3. You've now just taught me sales skills and communication skills to help to be effective and how to have real relationships with people and to grow. So why don't I take these same skills and put it back into the passion and the calling you have on my life? And everybody thought I was crazy, that I'm like, I put a band together and said, we're going to go perform. There's the rest, the career isn't there. Let's go perform. And within 6 months, I was able to open for Clint Black in Camp Verde, Arizona on the 4th of July, because I asked for the business. because there was favor. And it was, again, a Post-it note on my marketing package that they told the guy booking that said, she's tenacious. You need to hire this girl. And that opened that opportunity. It's been literally a series of Post-it notes that I think is hysterical, but God put favor on that. And we spent the next years out touring and opening for some of the biggest names in country music. But what was even more amazing is that boy that I had in 1991 was now writing music for me, playing guitar, and became my lead guitar player. As we went out on the road as a family, he was standing right beside me on stage. And he has opened for some of the biggest names with me in music. By the time he was 18, he was leading our band. We're singing in front of thousands and thousands of people in major venues. And then we became the spokesperson for the American veterans for 3 years for the state of California, performing for the military and veteran community. It was incredible, incredible experience. In 2011, as we're now in the peak of that, it's still, I was struggling. There were times we were not getting by. We were getting our food from the food bank on different weeks. If I was in between singing jobs and trying to keep the lights on in the house and the mortgage. And that was a difficult time for my kids. My boys, my middle boys still talk about when they knew they couldn't eat till after I sang. We can't eat till mom's done singing. That's when she'll have the money. We have to sell CDs for mom to feed us. And that's the part that they remember, but God always provided. And in 2011, we lost our home. Everything gone, everything. And I prayed and said, God, please, all I asked for is that Elisa, my daughter was little at the time. I said, just all I asked for is my piano. I had my baby grand piano. God, just help me keep my piano. That's all I'm asking for. And on moving day, the movers dropped the piano straight down on the keys and busted it.
Oh,
so again, I'm going, okay, this hurts. This hurts. And we were literally homeless. My boys had to go back to their dad. I had my daughter with me because she was young. And I said, what do you want, God? What do you want? And he opened up a job in San Diego. And I said, okay, you want me to go to San Diego? Then all right. I applied for several jobs. And I got the one in San Diego to go back into the mortgage and real estate world that was just starting to open up. And I remember that day I had opened for Trace Adkins on a Thursday to a sold out crowd. And on Monday, I was in a cubicle in San Diego starting over. And my daughter and I came down here with just our clothes. We were renting a room with a twin bed and I was starting over again. And I remember God saying, Amy, you put the same passion into this that you put into everything else. And watch what I'm going to do with it. And for sake of timing on this, that was 11 years ago. And this week I sit here with a coaching business. I've been a TV host for 5 years. That same little girl just graduated 3 weeks ago with honors.
Wow.
With honors. And on the day she graduated, my song charted Music Row. And that is favor. That is God saying, I am here with you. I'm going to turn these different seasons into victories that you're going to share, that are going to inspire others. I have never let go on my license plate because I believe that with all my heart, because quitting wasn't an option. It just wasn't. So that's where we sit today. I'm remarried. There's 6 kids. I have my 4 and 2 adult step kids. And I'm just so grateful when I watch my daughter graduate and realizing she remembers those times of not being able to eat. She remembers those days of struggle. My boys remember those days of struggle. And we all sat there together and celebrated her a few weeks ago. At the same time, my song called What If It All Goes Right hits the charts the exact same day. So I'm so glad I'm meeting you today and getting to share this story today, because it is very real and very fresh and very raw. And there are so many more different stories of God just doing miracles in between, in the middle of just complete disaster and tragedy. We got stuck in Denver on tour. Literally, we were going to be thrown out of the hotel. I had a job cancel and I couldn't provide for the band. I couldn't pay for the hotels and I couldn't put the gas in the trucks to get to the next city. And the fairgrounds we were performing at said, we heard what happened to you and we're going to use our emergency funds to hold you up in town until you can get to the next city. And God provided a miracle in a moment that me and the band would have been sleeping on the sidewalks in Denver with kids in tow. There was so many times that God just said, I'm here. I'm giving you grace. There's a calling. There's a purpose on your life. And when my son and I have performed at veterans hospitals, and when we stood next to each other and blessed others, we've been a part of the worship band. I still go back to my same church where I used to live. My pastors are my best friends. And when we have that opportunity to do that together, and I think back to that day that God saved him in that Planned Parenthood, that's just our story. It's not a political statement. It's just what happened.
Man, just God's grace. That's the only thing you can say, God's grace. And it's just a reminder that he is continuing to watch out for us. We just have to listen. And if you are struggling right now and you just don't know what you're going to do, listen and let God guide you. So, Amy, what's next for you? You've done it all. I mean, gosh, you've been in this industry for a long time. You have a
Yeah,
book out. What's
I
next
do.
for you?
That, you know, I love, I've just spent the last 2.5 years building the business. The coaching grew. I wrote the book. The pandemic hit. And again, it was a shift. I wasn't going to the TV studio
Mm-hmm.
anymore. We make that shift. And I go, okay, God. And he put on my heart, this, you're going to write this. And I never
Mm-hmm.
dreamed I was going to get a call. While I was writing the book, I got a call from Nashville after 18 years of since I had been able to record, to get a call and say, I've got the producer for you. There was a gentleman, James Ray, who was my manager at the time, that, again, another miraculous story, how we even met all those years
Mm-hmm.
ago. He's just wonderful. And he said, I've got your producer. Are you ready to record again? 18 years, God gave me my heart's desire back. And so what I've decided to do, I work in the moment. I listen. I say, these are the projects I'm on. One thing I've learned to do that is different than what I did when I was younger. I used to always pray for God to bless what I'm doing. God, okay, will you bless this and bless the book and bless the music and bless this business or whatever I'm doing. And so many times it would just get ripped out from underneath me. And I realized that my prayer needed to be, God, why don't you put me in what is blessed?
Hey,
Pick me up,
wow.
put me in what
Amen.
you're already blessing, because then I know where I'm supposed to
Yeah.
be. And sometimes that's a big, huge turn of the train. So because I see it that way, I've always put me in what is blessed. As these things have been happening, I'm like, oh God, you've already blessed it. That's why you put me there. Okay, this is all right. This is awesome. Then I can stand in peace and faith on that. So again, I'm still praying, put me in what is blessed. And that might be my next client. That might be my next project. He may say, okay, you're done talking about the book this week. Okay. I want to stay moving in what is blessed. And what's awesome now is that I've started my own nonprofit a couple of years ago, that I built it and didn't know why. And now it's coming to fruition, called Voice for Heroes, to help
Wow.
other nonprofits share their story using the media. I didn't know why I built it 4 years ago. And now God's like, do you see? But now you have a song out. Now you have the best-selling book out. Now we can do something with this. But it had to be built then, so it was ready. I sit on the
Yeah.
board of 2 other nonprofits that I'm able to so into the life of other people, to encourage them to not give up, to find resources. So I'm excited to see what God is blessing that he's putting me in. And I'm telling you, doors are opening up every day when I stopped having it be my agenda, even with this music. Yes, of course, the kid in me that always wanted to be Barbara Mandrell when she grew up, my song is finally charting. But I remember even 4 weeks ago saying, my identity is not in the charts. My identity is not whatever the world receives of this music or this song. But God, you know why you wanted me to record this song. What if it all goes right? You know what you're going to do with it. And let me just be grateful, because you've blessed it, and I will be thankful for whatever that blessing is.
Yeah.
And so I don't know what it holds, but I'm sitting here in such a time of surrender. I think more than ever before. There was the surrender when we were struggling. There was surrender when we lost everything multiple times. This is a different surrender of, okay, just keep pushing it forward. Even meeting you here today and being on this podcast, it was a blessing. It came in through Podmatch. Like, okay, great. We were matched up. God blessed this already and said, I want you there. And so I want moments like that every day, so that there's a constant daily testimony that can keep going. And that's what I think is ahead.
Yeah. Tell people how they can connect with you.
amyscruggs.com, amyscruggsmedia.com, amyscruggsmusic.com. It all leads to the same platform. So if you just Google Amy Scruggs, thankfully, I think there's only 2 of us in the country with this name, so it's not hard to find me. And you'll find my social handles, you'll find the websites, and you can get more information.
Yeah. Please give our audience a final word. Someone who has struggled in the way that you've struggled, and God is trying to speak to them right now. What is the word that you would give to them?
It's the same one that the Lord gave me in 2011, that said, put the same passion and heart into what you're doing, and watch and see what I'm going to do with it. Watch and see what God's going to do with your pain, what God's going to do with your story, with your victories, with your challenges. Just be patient, and don't think that today is the last day of your story. He who began a good work in me is faithful to complete it. That's all the way to the end. My story is still going, and so is yours.
Yeah. Amy, thank you so much for being here today and being a part of this episode. CWS audience, I mean, she has given you the golden nuggets. God used her today to tell you that you can, in fact, make it. Sit, listen, let God bless you right where you are, and allow him to lead you into the things that are already a blessing. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. And until next time, God bless.